Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Man, it is Thanksgiving week. Today is the day before Thanksgiving. I think Thanksgiving means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I think the one common denominator is everybody gets to eat. The other thing is there's a lot of gratitude around the holiday of Thanksgiving. Being thankful, having gratitude, being appreciative of the people you have, the circumstances you have, focusing on the positive and not on the negative. Very few people get together for Thanksgiving and have beers and kind of reminisce on all the bad things that have happened to them. Everybody wants to be positive. Everybody wants to focus on the good times, the good things, the things they can appreciate. Pro Mindset. Pro Mindset is a mental playbook. It's a mental playbook to help you get unstuck. It's a mental playbook that has 3 principles that allows you to be your best in your biggest moments. What I want to focus on in this episode, that is a monologue for the next 20 minutes, is the importance of your story. Your story is your identity. It's who you are. It's not what you do. You know, it's interesting when we meet people, we always ask them, how you doing? What are you doing? Especially a guy thing, what do you do? Instead of, things like, what do you think? Who are you? We very seldom meet somebody and go, bro, who are you, man? We always ask, what do you do? And so we are human beings. We're not human doers, even though as human beings, we do a lot of doing. And as a human being, it's more about who we are than what we do. And I think in sports, there's a lot of tethering between identity and performance. The guys that believe the most do the most. The guys that have they have crystal clear clarity on who they are. They show up the best on the field, on the court, on the pitch, whatever sport it is. And that's why, like in the NFL, you'll have guys that for some reason they flunked the medical at the combine leading up to the draft. They had a heart murmur. They had some type of, abnormal issue that wasn't life-threatening, but NFL teams just get they panic. We got to take him off their board. So he doesn't get drafted. And like I said, it's not a life-threatening thing. It's just, he's been playing football his whole life and he ends up being a superstar because his identity wasn't wrapped up into whether he got drafted or not. Other players, on the other hand, their identity is tied into how high they get drafted or if they get drafted at all. And that's why a lot of really stellar, some college football players who fall in the draft disappear from the NFL scene very quickly. Or if, let's say, for example, they don't get drafted, uncharacteristically perform poorly in training camp and OTAs and in the preseason games as a rookie, and they disappear, never to be seen again. So that begs a question, kind of like the chicken or the egg, what comes first? Does performance come first or does identity come first? They go hand in hand, but identity is the trump card. You cannot outperform your identity. And as an athlete, if you don't believe you can, typically your coaches won't believe you. They won't believe in you and they won't play you. Talked to a lot of guys over the years, even today, that in college football as well as in pro football, they're unhappy with their playing time. They don't understand why somebody that's a little bit less talented is playing in front of them, at least in their mind. It always comes down to identity. It comes down to belief in who they are. And coaches don't ask players if they believe in themselves. They just observe it. They see it. They feel it. The best coaches not only can read between the ears of a player, they can also build up a player. And so a lot of times in the NFL, there's not a lot of time for development, especially mental and psychological development. The only place a player can do that is on the practice squad because they're certainly not going to put a player in the game that needs some type of psychological and advancement or expansion. And that player's going to end up on the practice squad. And if he doesn't develop as much mentally as they want him to, in due time, they'll just let him go. And it won't be for a lack of talent. It'll be for they don't think he's ready. The light hasn't come on. The lights are too bright. It's too big time for him. They don't trust him. One of the biggest aspects of sport for coaches is they never play a player they don't trust. Players that are sitting on the sidelines typically don't realize that their coach doesn't trust them. And sometimes it takes a shakeup like an injury, very poor performance, something happening to the guy in front of them before the coach will play him. And it's not because they want to play him. It's not because they trust him. It's because they got no choice. They got to play somebody. And when that player finally gets in, even though that player hadn't developed the trust with his coach, he demonstrates that he's got it. He does have the it factor. The lights aren't too bright. He does have belief in himself. He does know the playbook, whatever the case may be. So if you're one of those guys that finds yourself on the sidelines and you're getting impatient and you're tired of waiting to get in your game, you might just take a step back and look at, does your boss, does your coach trust you? And if they didn't, why wouldn't they? And a lot of times it comes down to the simple concept of you might be a 99.9er, meaning that you believe in yourself 99.9% of the time, which is a lot, but it's not all the time. And coaches like to play players that believe in themselves regardless of the circumstances. So let's say, for example, you're a quarterback and you've thrown a couple picks, a couple interceptions. The coach wants the player that recognizes that he maybe threw into double coverage, triple coverage, made a bad throw, made a bad decision, but that's not who he is. It's just what he did. And they know they can trust him because he's not going to do it again. Compared to the athlete that throws a couple of picks and absorbs his performance and sees his identity in alignment with his performance. So obviously, if he's throwing picks, he thinks he stinks. So guess what the coach thinks? He stinks. So guess what happens next? Everybody knows. He's on the bench and the coach is going to put in his backup because you can have a coach's trust and lose it. It's not an infinity kind of game. It's not a forever type of situation. Trust is something that a player has to develop with his coaches on a daily basis, practice by practice, meeting by meeting, week by week, during the course of his season, during the course of his career, so that when you got a guy like Peyton Manning playing for the Broncos on a Monday night game against Atlanta, in Atlanta, he throws 3 picks in the first half. He didn't get pulled. You're not going to pull Peyton Manning. He won a Super Bowl with the Colts, and they go on and win. They end up beating the Falcons because, number one, Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. So what if he threw 3 picks? And number two, his coach didn't even think twice about taking him out because he knew that's not who he was. Can you be Peyton Manning in that situation where you have a couple blunders, make a couple mistakes, maybe make some bad decisions, but it's not who you are? So here's the thing that I find with young people. A lot of times they don't know how to find their belief. They don't know how to become a 100%er. And a lot of times that's the case because they are outward minded. They are focusing on external circumstances. They're looking at other people. They're playing the comparison game. They're putting themselves in the shoes of the coach. They're like, oh my God, you should play. They're the guy who's a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, has a more powerful arm, better accuracy, whatever it might be. I can compare myself to anybody and find myself on the short end of the stick in multiple places, in multiple areas. And that's how our mind works. We look for negative things. We find the gaps of how somebody else looks better, runs faster, jumps higher, whatever it might be. And so for young players, the key is to not play that external game and look at all the circumstances. The key is to play an inside game, which is look at your P5 system, which in Pro Mindset is look at your preparation, up-level your standard of preparation. Evaluate how you practice. Coach can only see how you practice and is only going to make the decision about whether you play in a game by how you practice. But there's a lot of players that think because they're gamers, when the lights come on, when it's a real game, they're gonna tear it up. Those guys never get in the game because if they can't do it in practice, coach doesn't know they can do it. They might be moving up to another level. Let's say it's soccer, you're moving up from developmental to where you got a new coach or you're going from high school or college or whatever the case may be. Coach doesn't know. Coach only knows what you show him in practice. So I can't overemphasize the importance of showing the intensity that you play in games shown in practice. The third thing is your preview and your visualization. If you up-level your visualization, seeing yourself doing it before you do it. Your mind thinks you can do it. And once you show yourself that you can do it in your mind, then your pocket voice, that little internal chatter, will reinforce you that you got this. Compared to if you don't visualize yourself doing it, you've never done it before, your pocket voice is going to potentially doubt you, be working against you. You could be driving to the game. You could be warming up on the field. You could be standing during the national anthem and your pocket voice is going, are you sure? Are you sure you got what it takes? Are you sure you're ready? Those are not things that you necessarily want to. It's enough to have an opponent that's on the field in a different jersey. You don't want an opponent in your own head. And then the fourth one of the P5 is your pit crew. It's your people. It's your programs that get you ready for those moments, whether it's in could be in the medical field, could be honestly, could be in a lot of different things. But you got to have a great pit crew. Then the last P is your process. And that's candidly everything else that's not preparation, practice, preview, or pit crew. And that can be things like sleep, nutrition, everything that matters. Blocking out distractions, having conversations with people you need to have conversations with before the game. So you're not thinking about that situation during the game. And if you do all those things, you're playing an inside game and you put yourself in the best possible position when it really matters to be your best. And when you play well, there's a compounding effect here. Now you believe more because you've done it. Your coaches believe more because you've done it. And your teammates believe more because you've done it. So there are a handful of identity killers. There are also confidence killers. That comparison we talked about. Perfection is another one. But nobody's perfect. There's never been a perfect game, even in baseball, where technically you have this title called a perfect game. The pitcher didn't throw a perfect game. He probably threw, he got 27 outs, but he probably threw, when he faced those 27 batters, I'm just going to guess, between 30 and 50 balls that weren't strikes. And then there was probably some bad pitches he threw that were fouled off. So it's like, and there was probably some bad pitches he threw that were flyouts because the batter didn't connect. No such thing as a perfect game. The other thing is scoreboard watching. I think, especially for young players, they're instead of waiting until the game's over and reviewing the game and seeing how they can get better, what they did well, what they could improve on during the scope of the game, in the middle of the game, middle of play, they're having a conversation with themselves about, hey, this is good. Boy, this is not good. I mean, think about being a shooter in basketball, and let's say you're firing up a three and the ball hasn't even left your hand yet. Like, oh, shouldn't have taken the shot. Shouldn't have taken the shot. I knew I shouldn't have taken the shot. That's not 100% belief. That is not being locked in. That's not being in a performance bubble and allowing the outcome to be potentially the best it could be. No, that's self-sabotage before the ball's even out of your hand. Candidly, that happens a lot in sports. It happens to me when I play golf sometimes. My performance bubble gets corrupted by my own pocket voice that's doubting me. It can be dangerous and it can be humbling sometimes if you're playing in front of a crowd and somebody's doubting you or hating you. But I can tell you that it's way worse if the voice that's doubting you that's living rent free in your head. It's right there, baby. You can't hide. It goes with you everywhere. So the bottom line is, your pocket voice has got to be for you, and it can't be for you if you don't believe in yourself. And it's very difficult to believe in yourself if you haven't put in the work through the preparation, practice, and so on and so forth, so that when you do show up for your big moment, you can play free. Then the last thing about identity is, how do you deal with results? Do you see it as data? Let's say you lose. Let's say you have a bad performance. Let's say you don't play as well as you should have. Let's say you got beat, you got outplayed by a person that was not quite as good as you, or maybe younger than you, or somebody that you whipped their butt before. So you just thought you would show up and you'd whip their butt again. When you're in those situations, that's data. And how you respond to that information is critical. Because if you don't have a clear-cut line of demarcation between who you are and what you do, that data becomes who you are. That negative data, those negative results, that poor play, that past gets to stay with you. And so it's very critical to go back to rewriting your story so you can control and be the author of your identity by remembering that you are not what you do. And so a lot of us, probably everybody walking the planet, has been a victim of something: bad luck, failures, disappointments, unfair treatment, things of that nature. I encourage you over Thanksgiving to rewrite that story. I have an exercise that I have my people go through, which is just kind of make a list of the things that have happened to you that have been memorable and negative. And what was the emotion attached to that? Maybe anger, disappointment, confusion, all those type of things. And then let's say it happened a month ago or 30 years ago. How can you reframe it today to be for you instead of against you? How can you look at that situation in such a way that it helps you live life moving forward even better? And how can you be a more liberated persona moving forward? Because what happened to you is not who you are. It's just what happened. And I think sometimes people go through identity crisis, and I think there's also an identity gap. Crisis is when you don't know who you are. The gap is when you don't think you are who you thought you would be. And both of those things hold you down. I talk about, like sprinters work with a resistance parachute when they practice so that when they take the parachute off, they can run faster. Well, when you have an identity crisis or an identity gap, that slows you down. And I've never watched a race like a sprint, like 100 meters, like in the Olympics or NCAA finals or anything like that, where the sprinter was actually wearing a parachute. It's because you always you take it off. You never run the real race with the parachute. But yet we live our lives with the resistance parachute, with all that stuff in the back of that parachute, holding us back, giving our pocket voice ammunition to remind us that we're not that great. We're not that good. Maybe we don't deserve it. Maybe somebody at some point in time told you that you shouldn't follow your dream, and you're reminded of that right before you're stepping into your dream. If you really want to be free, have peace, and be your best, you've got to be very clear about your identity. You have to be able to elevate your standards by working those 5 Ps. And when you're in your performance bubble that you create, when corruption tries to get in, you reset. And the way I reset is by breathing. God gave us breathing. God gave us oxygen to breathe. The difference between being alive and dead is whether we're breathing or not. I'm keeping it simple, not taking it to a medical level. I use my breath to reset when I'm in situations where I get thrown curveballs. Athletes sometimes do it without even realizing it, but the best ones do it on purpose. A lot of guys, a lot of girls too, a lot of athletes, especially before a free throw, they take a breath or two. All it does is just gets rid of all the anxiety, all the butterflies, and all the stress. That's a good thing. LeBron James and a lot of NBA guys do it during timeouts. The very best people at doing that do it all the time. If you're going to breathe, why not breathe deep? Why not really take in some oxygen? Why not really feel free and feel relaxed? That will help you in your identity. So as we enter tomorrow, Thanksgiving, I want all of you to double down on your identity. Double down. Go all in. It's like poker, Texas Hold'em. I'm going all in on this hand. I want to challenge you guys to go all in on you. Who God created you to be, the dreams that you have. Maybe you've had them since you were 7. Don't let your dreams die. There's 2 people that I love a lot. It's the people that are authentically themselves because they're not trying to be somebody else. And the second type of people I love are people that follow their dreams. Not just dream, but act on their dreams. So there's a lot. All of us have dreamed multiple times about lots of different things. But unfortunately, because of life and finances and getting out of college, I got to get a job, all these different things, people kill their dreams. My encouragement for 2026, which isn't that far away, is to be you and follow your dreams. Thank you for joining me today on Pro Mindset. This was a little bit of a different approach than interviewing some really smart person that I really enjoy doing Pro Mindset, where I feel like I'm getting my PhD every week and interviewing these amazing people from all over the world and all different types of disciplines. But I hope you enjoyed it and have a great Thanksgiving. Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.